a few weeks ago, I did the first wedding I've done in 3 years. And you know, I miss it. I never ever thought I would say that I missed doing weddings. I used to work at a great big church with a long center aisle and the big front steps, and so people would come to our church not because they had anything to do with our church or any interest in our church or who I am or anything else. They just wanted the center aisle and the big steps for the photos. And it used to get frustrating because so many times these were very, very high maintenance weddings where people seemed to be far more interested in the wedding than in the marriage. And then you'd get I can't actually blame the wedding couples because there's so much pressure. You know, have you ever seen the size of wedding magazines? They're like 2 inches thick. And every page is full of things that want to separate you from your money so that you're going to have the so-called perfect day. And now with social media, the pressure is so much higher. Now it's not that you have to have a happy wedding leading off to a great marriage, but now it's all about getting the right number of likes on your social media posts. The pressure is incredible. So what was it about this last wedding that actually made me miss all of this? Well, in many ways, this couple was already married. They'd been together for 23 years. They just wanted to make it official. They just wanted to have this touchstone in their life together to mark this as something special. They'd already worked out how they lived together, how they move through life together. And this goes along with so much that this is something I tell every couple that I'm going to marry, that the wedding ceremony is not the beginning of their marriage. The beginning of their marriage starts when they're negotiating whose turn it is to clean the bathroom. And the wedding service itself is not some magical event that's going to make everything from that point on go smoothly. It's still going to take time. That little annoying habit that your spouse has is not going to go away. The snoring is only going to get louder. The gas that is passed is not going to smell like roses. It seems that in life, the most important events, the most important occasions aren't something that just happen all at once, but are a process. Things that happen over time. You know, when you have a birthday, it's a great touchstone to mark your age, but you're traveling around the sun every other day of the year. You watch the news, and one of the things we need a lot more of is peace treaties. But the signing of that treaty is only one step in a process that has been taken on by diplomats for months. The things that we celebrate take time. And I get kind of suspicious when people say, this is the day that everything changed. And today could be one of those days. This is Pentecost, and it's often seen as the birthday of the Christian church. This is the day that a bunch of scared disciples gained courage to take Jesus' message out into the world. This is the day that everything became clear. This is the day that they got the inspiration that they finally needed to change the whole world. But was this really the day? It had been 50 days since Jesus' execution at the hands of the Roman military occupation, and the disciples were back in Jerusalem for another festival. They had been there during Passover, and that's when Jesus was arrested, and now they're back for what's called the Festival of Booths. It's kind of a harvest festival, but they're also celebrating God giving the people the Ten Commandments. And so everybody is back in Jerusalem but there is danger in returning to the scene of the crime. So they are likely quite nervous. They're worried that they are in danger. Because it hasn't been that long, and the authorities are still looking for troublemakers, the Jesus followers being some of the most dangerous in the eyes of the empire. And so they are nervous and staying sheltered in their room, but then something happens. We hear this story every year on Pentecost, and it's a wonderful story. It has so many wonderful images. All of a sudden, the room is full with this powerful wind, and these something like flames appear on people's heads, and they start speaking in every language. Actually, it's not so much that they're speaking every language, it's that every language is being heard. It would be kind of like if I was here preaching a sermon still in English, but you all heard it in whatever language you first learned, your first language. Maybe you would hear it in French. Maybe you would hear it in Ukrainian. For some of you, it would sound like English, but with more swearing. But the symbolism of this story is really clear. It's that they are to get out of their room, go out into the world, and preach the gospel to a world that is ready and able to hear what they have to say. So was this the birthday of the church? It's a wonderful touchstone. It's an important thing that we celebrate. But in so many ways, it was part of a process. It's like the weddings. The story right before this, we find out that Matthias was named as the 12th disciple to replace Judas Iscariot. And before now, they've already been meeting with Jesus several times. He appeared on the road when they were mourning the death of their friend. They appear in a boat to remind them that they aren't here to fish for people, but to fish for, not to fish for fish, but to fish for people. And each one of these experiences gave them a little bit of courage, a little bit of encouragement, and then they needed more later. It was an up and a down, and an up and a down. And this day did not make everything clear for them from this time on. They continued to need to bolster their courage. They still made mistakes. They still had to live through the process of being gospel deliverers to the world. It wasn't a one-day thing. It was something that had to be practiced day after day after day. And it's always been like that with the church. You know, about a year ago, we had a big celebration here about how we had amalgamated Sunset and Wesley congregations. It was a great celebration and an important one. But leading up to that day, there was bucketfuls of work that needed to be done. And the amalgamation isn't over. We're still learning how to be a new church. We're still making mistakes, we're still getting some things right, and we're still trying again. We're going to get better at some things and make less mistakes along the way, but then we're going to take on new challenges and give us a whole new opportunity to mess up. And that's going to be the way it hopefully will always be in the life of this congregation. And it's kind of like that for us as individuals too, isn't it? And you look back in history, it's always been that way. One of the things that I sometimes have a challenge with in the church is that we sometimes talk about the heroes of the faith, or the really big momentous occasions. But those too, they tended to be processes. It was things put in place. It was people being at the right time in the right place. One of the things that we mark as a Protestant church is the day that Martin Luther nailed his theses to a church door, starting the Protestant Reformation. But people had been sowing discontent with the conduct of the Roman Catholic Church for years. There was lots of other people that were writing protest literature against the church. It's just that Martin Luther was the one that got the attention, that got the history. And he was in the right place because the German king was feuding with the Roman Catholic Pope, which gave Luther a little bit more freedom and a little bit more safety than he might have otherwise had. Some people will talk about the day that they were born again as Christians, but I have yet to meet anybody that all of a sudden, all at once, became a totally virtuous person following every single word of the gospel. But it's always kind of a process. A few steps forward, a few steps back. And I think sometimes we need to remember that, because when we think about the heroes of our faith, when we hear about these great days, we might start looking at ourselves in a way that's kind of unfair. Really, what have I done in my life that is going to change the world forever and be remembered? Where is the strong wind blowing through our sanctuary, filling our lives with meaning and tongues of fire on our heads? It's not happening. Can we hope that this Pentecost day is the day that our congregation is going to go boldly into the world and without fail or error change the world? We can hope. It's not likely, but we can hope. But maybe more likely, this is the day that we come together as people and try again and again and again. And that is how we all are as individuals too. Maybe you take it, this is the day that I'm going to start eating healthier. But then you realize that buying a case of kale was a really bad idea. Maybe this is the day that you want to get more involved in the church, but maybe signing up to make muffins when you don't even own a set of measuring spoons was not the best thing to do. Maybe you need to help Mark with the cleanup day at the church on Thursday and Friday from 3 until 7.
Wednesday and Thursday.
Wednesday and Thursday. What did I say? Thursday, Friday. Wednesday, Thursday from 3 till 7. So you don't have to make muffins. But maybe this is also just the day that we are one of many. That this is a day where we take a step forward, that we join with other people around the world, faithful Christians that are also just trying to do their best, trying to live and be courageous for another day, and sometimes getting it right and sometimes getting it wrong. Maybe we'll say that today is not the day, but maybe today can be the start of something that continues tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. And I think that's what having faith is partially about. It's having faith that even though we sometimes misread the direction of the wind, God's Spirit is still blowing. Maybe it's the faith and the grace to give ourselves and each other the patience that we need, the compassion we need, the forgiveness that we need, to laugh at ourselves and say, I got it wrong, but maybe tomorrow I'll get it right. And then again, maybe I won't. But there's always another day. There's always another try. Maybe it's also with a faith to remember that we're not alone. We live in God's world. God is always going to be with us, as well as all the other children of God who will join with us, holding our hands, laughing at ourselves, stubbing our toes, taking 2 steps forward while we take 1 step back, in a process of bringing this world to be more peaceful and more loving.